Okay, welcome back. It is another thrill-packed Friday. What is today? Today's the 22nd. Christmas is, I think, less than 30 days away, if
Wow.
I'm not mistaken. I know, it's nuts. It's been a couple weeks. Let's see. So the elections happened. Trump won. There was snow yesterday, last night in Cleveland. Lots of snow.
Lots of snow.
Lots of snow. What else
Snow
is
in
going on?
Jersey, 13 inches in North Jersey.
What?
Was
Really?
it
Yeah.
really?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
yeah.
Wow. All right, so the season is fully turned. We are making the final turn into the end of 2024. Can't believe it. And Art, before I go even further, what is this? What episode is this? Is this
Number
a big
40,
40?
40.
Wow. Okay. All
Kind of
right.
hard to believe, right?
Yeah, time flies. Time flies. Okay, so what else is going on? The industry stuff, we'll get into that. AI is just still on fire. Haven't seen the end of it yet. Might talk about that. Today we have what I guess I'd say is one of our standard guests. John is here to enlighten us with any technical issues that come up. But we have a new guest in the house, Taylor. And Taylor, I reached out to her a couple weeks back. I'll give a brief introduction and then we'll, ask you to explain a little bit more or what I said wrong. So Art and I have been selling copiers. Art's selling before Art comes here to do this show, he's selling copiers. So he's in the field, banging the phones, knocking on doors, selling everything from toner, paper, whatever. Oh, and wide formats. But he's in the field selling stuff. I sold for from 99 to I don't even know 2000 something, and then broke out on my own. But the art of the sale has always been part of something I've loved to be a part of wherever I've always done sales since '88 in the technology and the sold all sorts. So I saw Taylor. I forget Taylor familiarized. I saw you on LinkedIn dropping something on the how salespeople in copier sales specifically, because you don't hear that very often, right? You hear everything go to sell whatever robots and things, but you don't hear anyone dropping information on how to sell a copier anymore. And Art knows, and we know, and I'm sure you do too, is that the industry has its standard sales training peeps. Nothing wrong with them, but very rarely in the last 10 years have we seen anyone new show up. And then we explore a little more, and you use the Sandler system, which I'm very familiar with. Well, I shouldn't say. I got trained on that a long time. I think it was in the 1900s. So I wanted to get you on the show, and it typically is ask Greg and Art anything, but it bounces back and forth. So I'm gonna start with you, Taylor, and I'm gonna dive right in, Art. So Taylor, I think you said that you sold education, or I mean, don't give us the whole 20-year thing that I just did, but what was your day like when you were in the copier industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I sold specifically into when I was an individual contributor, I sold into the education vertical. So I was strictly selling into schools, universities, junior colleges, and just, dealing with the lack of funding. So a lot of bids, a lot of RFPs.
Stuff like that. Okay. Now, that's brief. So how did you make the jump from doing that to helping or training copier reps?
Yeah, so
How
when
did
I
that
was in
happen?
the industry, I was again trained by Sandler also, and it was only for about a week. And after that week, I was thrown into the field like many of us were and said, "Okay, here's your list, go have fun." And the approach that they taught me was just it was like, "Hey, my name's Taylor. I'm with Konica Minolta, or whatever company I was with at the time." And it was just very similar to the same thing that everybody else was saying. And so I was a creative person. I was a former teacher. And so I know walking into schools, I had to be a little bit unique and a little bit creative. And so I started creating my own pattern interrupt. And then I realized that that was a part of Sandler and that it was actually just a unique way to approach the conversation. So that's what sparked my interest in coaching copier sales reps so that they could get more meetings with people whenever they were knocking on doors.
Okay. So let me ask you this. When you are talking to the reps right now, and just throw it out there for a new rep coming in like yourself or someone who was in that baptism by fire thing, right?
Yeah.
Do you find that is still happening? Is that pretty
Yeah.
prevalent or?
Yeah, unfortunately, sales development is still something that we're lacking in the copier industry. Any reps that I talk to, they have a very similar story. Yeah, I was trained for maybe a week. I did some ride-alongs with my boss, and then I was really just thrown into the fire. And then on top of that, anytime they went to their manager, it was very small things that they helped with, right? Like, hey, where are you at in this deal? Do you want me to call them? It was never, hey, here's a process. Here's how we deal with these kind of things in terms of stalls,
Wow.
objections. So it was like navigating without any sort of compass.
Wow. Art, when you guys bring people in new, what's the training protocols?
We do have a training code protocol. I'm not involved in that, so I really
Okay.
can't speak that much about it. I do know it is probably a week process, meeting with our internal sales
Mm.
trainer. And I know John, and John's had at least 40 years in the industry, and he seems to be doing a good job.
Yeah, John, I'm real curious because, we've been in for a while. So talk to me about what you've seen today. Because I'll be very upfront with you. When I heard Taylor's story, it's like, come on, I heard that 15, 18, 20 years ago. Are you telling me it's still happening? And, what do you see
Well,
out there, John?
there's always that tug between, I want to teach these and train these people, some, fresh out of college or new to the workforce. And, I want to give them all this knowledge. But then on the other hand, hey, let's kick them out the door and make money. So there's always that tension between those two areas. But in my experience with new reps, I've always been in the industry. I've always been on the technical side,
Right.
from
Yeah.
hardware first, then technology, then software, then content and stuff like that. So it's always been my part, one component of that full training regimen that we go through. Stratix is pretty good compared to some other dealers that I've worked with, in that there's a lot of structure, especially the first 6 weeks. There's a lot of phone time. There's a lot of coaching from our internal salesperson. His name's John also. I think that's who Art was talking about. That goes to the reps and sits with them on the phone and walks them through calls and monitors their calls, and we have components of, let me show you how to work a copier, because a lot of them, I would say most of them, if you're a young person, when's the last time you used a copier? Never.
Never, ever.
So the first thing I do, I bring them in. I say, "All right, open, take a jam out of a copier." And they look, it's a deer in the headlights. But that's part of it. That's the learning process. And the ones that excel in the beginning, the ones that are have a good rapport with customers, I think they have a future in it. So
Mm-hmm.
so it's fun. It's interesting with new reps. So
Art, I see. Is Earl on? Art? Earl,
It
you
should
there?
be.
I think I am.
Hey.
There he is.
What's up, guys? How are you?
Hey, Earl, good to see you. Earl, meet Taylor. Taylor, Earl.
Hey,
Earl's our
Taylor,
friend
how
in
are you?
Chicago. Earl has a dealership. I don't get a big head, Earl. A cutting edge dealership. Okay, something he's always out there promoting things that aren't typically what you hear from other dealer channels, right, or dealer providers in Chicago.
Yeah.
Which I was going to talk about Chicago to begin with, because we're talking about training. Earl, Taylor is new, quote unquote, new on the scene in terms of our you probably haven't heard of her, but she's how we've got our typical trainers in the industry, right? We know the whole thing. Taylor's new. I met her a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks ago. A good story, but what really got my attention was she was mentioning what she's seen in the field, and I'm thinking, I'm getting deja vu. It's like 15, 18 years ago I've been hearing her saying the same things. And we were just talking about how you bring up a new crew and all that. And I think you just went through I'm not sure. I don't want to talk for you. But anyway, the fact is Earl's in Chicago. I think he's now selling Xeroxes, but your typical fight for every inch you can dealership in a market that's pretty freaking competitive. All right. And I remember, because I worked at Impact for a year, and I was going to talk about their training, which was a 2-week intensive. I mean, intensive. But the day after getting out of training, I probably couldn't tell you three things that we learned out of it, right? It was still get out there and go get on the phones and act like you've been doing it for years. But Earl, what are you seeing when you bring in new guys? And we were just talking about what a protocol was, how that's going, and
Yeah.
give us your insights.
It's tough, man, to find people that actually want to get out there and work, to be honest. It's like nobody wants it anymore. You know what I mean? It's like the old school guys or me, I'm in that category as well. It's like I'm willing to do whatever it takes, and roll up the sleeves and get dirty and go after the business, because we want the business. So, in today's, I think the generation coming in, they're afraid to ask what I always say, the embarrassing questions, right? They're afraid to
Oh,
ask questions and to really qualify a customer. And I'm always saying, my conversations with a customer is always a qualification in the beginning. I'm trying to qualify from the get-go. Like, is this client a potential prospect for me? If not, I lose early. I move on. I go find somebody that's actually going to help me and I can help them as well. Right. But everybody's afraid to know, like the new generation coming in, they're afraid to be
wow.
turned down. And that's why social media and the phones and so forth, that's why they get so attached to that device, is because it's easy just to look. But until you start having a true, real conversation with a client, it's tough. And
This,
you, you have to have thick skin. You guys know, you guys have been in the game for a long time. You have to have thick skin. We have to be the rhinos, right? I mean, back in the days, like we have to have rhino skin. We do, because still, even today, after 30 years in the business for me, I still get, the nose. It's okay.
yeah.
It's part of the game.
Those are good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not, well, there's all sorts of little truth, every no gets you closer to a yes and stuff like that. But you said something very interesting. The generational thing, I'm sure we'll get into, but the challenge with getting a no, and it Taylor, I'm gearing this towards you because it is a qualification process. And if I remember correctly, the Sandler process was a qualification from uh, compartment to compartment, step to step to step, right? It was so when if it isn't being you're afraid to hear no, but actually that's a good thing. If it's a real no in the first three steps, you don't have to go through the next 12, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I actually find that it's not a will thing with the new
hmm,
generation. It's actually a skill thing. There's a little bit of will tied to it, but it's actually a skill thing, and I'll tell you why. When we throw people into the fire, that's like me saying, "Hey, Greg, there's a plane over there. Go fly it." Right? And we don't
okay.
have a process and we don't have a system to follow, or we've only been taught 1 week on how to do something, how to pick up the phone. There's so much unpredictability in that whenever you don't train someone to have the skill to do something, then all of a sudden it becomes a will thing, right? So then they don't want to go out and do it because they're afraid they're going to do it wrong and they're going to lose their job. So I've actually found that it's not so much a will thing, but it's more of they don't know what to do. They don't know what to be afraid of. They hear no, and it's like they don't know what to do with that no. And so in turn, they just stop doing it, right? They just pull back completely because they don't want to hear no because they don't know how to handle it.
Hmm, hmm. So you're saying you could train that out of them pretty
I wouldn't
much.
say you could train it out of them, but I think when you give people more predictability, then they're more willing to do things. For example, if I gave you more direction on how to fly that plane, you would feel a little bit better about flying it versus if I just said, okay, go get them.
Hmm,
So back to that point though, like my first day in the copier sales job, my GM told me just go out and ask everybody one question, right? The question was, if I could get you a brand new print device for what you spend now, would you be interested? And what I realized very quickly was they're going to say yes, no, I don't know. Because not everybody wakes up in the morning thinking they're going to buy a new copier at the time, right? So me, being young at the time, I would always ask if they said no. I'm always curious, like, why not? Because my thought process was, if I ask you this question, you should say yes to me, right? But I didn't realize how many people actually say no to the question, right? So it was like, well, why not? Just out of curiosity. And
Yep.
it's like, well,
Most
they didn't
power,
really know why they said no. They just said no. And
most
then you start to peel that onion back a little bit, and then you realize that, this could be a potential prospect. because their true no didn't really have a lot of merit to it. It was maybe, well, we're in a contract right now. Oh, okay. Well, let's say we could do something, right? And it was always that curious questioning that really struck everybody. And they would say, well, maybe, you know. So that was my train of thought. And, you know, again, I jumped in the game with zero training. My thought was you ask somebody that question and they say yes.
Yeah, I found that the problem is when you approach people like that, you're approaching them as people have approached them for the last 20, 30 years, right? So when you're asking them that question, they automatically put up their walls. And so when you're asking, you know, hey, whatever question you were asking back then, people automatically have an answer for that now. No, we're not interested, or no, we're already working with somebody. And they have that because of the way that they're being approached by that question.
Well, this was 30 years ago too.
Yeah,
Right.
well, it still happens today very often.
Yeah.
So
It was a different time.
40 years ago, I was given a Yellow Pages book and a phone, and the question was, "Hello, hi, so and so, how are you? I'm just calling to see if your company is in need for a copy machine." That was the only prospecting. That was the initial call that you did. If you got a no, you moved on. But if you got a yes, you asked to speak to the decision maker. At that time, there were many more people in the market for copiers, especially when you were changing from e-stat to bond paper. So it was a little bit easier back then because you didn't have all the social media, you didn't have people hiding behind voicemail, you didn't have companies not picking up their phones at all. Just that was 40 years ago.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if you look at it that way, but the competition was tougher. Remember the days that your prospect might have been called 5 times by 5 different people.
That's correct.
Selling them a copier.
Yeah.
So that's where that was. But this brings up an interest, and obviously that's changed for tons of different things, tons of blah blah blah, all that stuff. But Earl or Taylor, you mentioned something very interesting about the level of curiosity, right? Earl, you did, right? And I think if I look at Art, I know that the 4 of us, and Taylor, I'm assuming the same. I don't know you that well, but we do have a natural curiosity, right? And it's always because Earl, you would ask, well, why wouldn't you? So there's your curiosity thing going on. Taylor, is that drying up? Is that one particular personality trait diminishing, do you think? I don't know. Are people less curious?
I wouldn't say they're less curious. I would say they just have access to more information. So if they need to go figure it out themselves, they can. So we're not asking questions because we have access at our fingertips.
Right. That makes sense. And then Earl, how about in the field? The prospects that do engage with you, I'm guessing they already have a whole slew of knowledge behind them already. I've been saying that for years, but is that okay? So tell me about that.
Here's the thing. I sell the way I purchase things. All right. So let's say somebody came to me and said, "Hey, Earl, you can get a brand new, whether it's my truck or my car, whatever. Like, if I can get you a brand new F-150 for what you spend now, would you be interested?" Right? I didn't wake up this morning thinking, I'd be interested in the truck. But it's a great question. Now you got me thinking, right? It's a seed that you just planted in my head, right? I go out, maybe my truck's dirty. I'm not happy for today. And I'm thinking, man, I could be driving a brand new F-150. The guy calls me back and says, "Hey, Earl, have you given that any thought?" Maybe, maybe not. But again, we start to have some dialogue. I do that same thing still today because, face it, you can go to any account out there. Nobody's happy with their copiers, right? They're just not. It's not printing as fast as it should. The quality isn't like it used to be. The thing jammed time. Just that simple little basic question. It is amazing how much it uncovers to start a conversation with customers. It really does. So like everything in my life, I live by that same thing. Like if I could get something brand new for what I spend now, why wouldn't I do it? Everybody wants something new, right? New pair of shoes, right? It's the same thing. It's the same game. And I think we overcomplicate this situation, you know?
I think you might be right. Yeah. I mean, I think one of my managers at Icon said that a long time ago. Sometimes we just make this too complicated, right? I think he really brought home, if if
So
if we don't deliver this on time, no one's going to die.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So here's the thing. If sales is all about building relationships, why do we have to really put smoke and mirrors around it?
well, that's
I'm
true.
out, I'm out building relationships. I really don't care how fast a copier is, right? There's so many sales techniques and so forth. You can't replace my relationship with anybody else. I don't care how much training you put somebody through. I'm still going to eat them alive because my relationship goes so far. So
So,
you have the
Right.
best
yeah.
rep out there. They're not going to take me out of my accounts.
However, we do know, if you're in this for a long time, relationships do come and go.
Absolutely.
Companies get sold.
For sure.
That person retires.
Yep.
That person
Yep.
gets fired. Somebody else takes their place. Yeah, I wish it was that one person stays with that firm forever, but it just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
Earl, can I ask you a question?
Oh, absolutely.
If your best friend was gonna sell you a truck, right? So you said, hey, I'm thinking about a truck, right? If your best friend was gonna sell you that truck, but you ended up meeting somebody who asked you really great questions, who got you a compelling reason, some challenges that you were having with your old truck, and they got you, everything that you were asking for, including a better price, would you still buy from your best friend, or would you buy from the person who actually solved your solution?
If my best friend is selling a truck, I'm going to buy from my best friend.
Always though, even if it's not a better deal?
Listen, I try to keep the money within the family, right? Amongst my friends. And I hope they do the same thing too.
But do you
Because
think everybody does? You think everybody feels that way?
I hope, listen, hey, my customers become a part of my life, just like I become a part of their company, their friends, their family. I golf, I do everything with my customers.
Yeah.
So I would say yes. They keep the money
That's
with me.
interesting, Taylor. That's interesting. I'm putting it through my head. Yeah, I do the same thing. Come to think of it, even if it were more, I don't know if that's good, bad, or indifferent, but if because I only have a few buddies. Now, again, I wouldn't, we're talking about a buddy who, listen, I can sell you the truck. It's going to cost you a little bit more.
Right.
This guy over here did a really good job, needs assessment, everything. But
So
when it gets right down to it, he's the guy I'm going to invite my friend over to dinner on Christmas. So there's an issue there.
I'll
But
put
are you
my
inviting your customers to Christmas?
No.
I'll put
Love
my
friend.
I'll put my 2 cents in, which I've learned a
Good
long time
question.
ago, is
Good
I do
question.
not sell copy machines to friends.
There's that.
There's that.
Well,
Keeps
that
you
might
out
be
of mayhem and disasters.
and delivering toner on a Sunday morning.
Agreed. Absolutely true.
Wow. Hey, Taylor, I got a question for you. And it's about, so tell me what you're seeing because it is about relationships. And I'm like hearing, this is so cool, hearing the old school, and I don't mean it derogatory, but I shouldn't say that. The classic, true blue, tried and true, proven relationships matter. I love hearing that. What do we see out there? And to be a little bit more specific, because I know the Sandlers, I don't mean to really focus guys on Sandler, but say an established selling process, right? That's been around. Taylor, what are the inflections through that lens when it comes to relationship building in today's world, not 1978 or 82 or 94, whatever?
Or 94. So here's why I say this. When we are building things on relationships and we get really close to somebody, say that I'm selling to a CEO and we're really good friends. Am I really going to ask them the tough questions? Am I really going to push them in a way that's going to be beneficial to their business? Or am I worried that when I see them at Christmas, they're going to be mad at me because I told them that their decision was stupid, or I told them that what they were doing was not the right decision for them? So that's why I suggest, yes, you need to care about them and you need to be friends with them. But at the same time, you need to care 49% and they need to care 51%. And that relationship matters, but it's not the end all be all for that very reason, because you're not going to push them to make the decisions that they need to make because you're so concerned about the friendship.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Um, Taylor, what questions do you have for us?
Oh,
Ooh,
there you go.
good ones. So let me ask you this. When you guys were having success and you guys were prospecting, what kind of success were you having getting into the door? Like, were you guys being unique, or were you just going in with hey, I'm so and so from XYZ company?
I'll
Who,
take that one, Art.
question
Or
for,
I'll let you go first.
I'll
okay,
let Earl go first.
I'll tell you, Taylor, so based on my experience, okay, and I've done okay in this business selling copiers for 30 years.
There you have.
Um, I've always been about the sizzle, okay? And I became a student of the game. And what I mean by that is back in the day when I used to go cold calling, I would have a BLI book in my car back in the day, and they list every type of copier, every spec, so on and so forth. And this is when copiers were analog. We were making a transition and all that stuff. But I learned every single machine in my field. So when I made a cold call into that, for an example, back in the day, Canon 4050s, right, analog, we had this new digital great device. And I would only talk about the sizzle that my product could do over the competitors, right? And I always carried samples, analog copy to a digital copy, right? And it's always evolved in this industry when we went from black and white to color, right? And then, we're connecting copiers to use them as printers and so on and so forth. It never stops, Then we came up with this novel idea to centralize printing to these copiers, get rid of printers. Now I'm back in the track of going decentralized, keep everybody in your workstation, right? It just keeps evolving around and around. And now these little powerful printers are now little MFPs that now you can keep your employees in their cubicle and have them be more productive, right? They don't have to go to the water cooler and talk about every football game and all these things. Anyway, if you look for the sizzle, you'll always be successful in this business because there's still some sexiness in this business, in the copier industry. It really is. People think copiers are so boring, but really they're not. You just have to figure out what's exciting about our industry. Everybody's like, oh, print's dying. It's just changing, And I hear that all the time on LinkedIn. Oh, print's declining. Those are the naysayers, right? I see it as print's increasing because we grow our business on a monthly basis with new customers all the time. I don't see that decline, right? You can't be stagnant. You got to think outside the box. You got to be a student of the game. You got to be passionate of what you're doing. You got to help people, no matter if they're a friend or not. Eventually, they will become my friend. Eventually, we will be going out to dinners, having fun, and lunches. And so I just take the whole game. I don't stop because it's 5 o'clock. I'm a 24/7 guy. And when they have issues, I have to be there. I'm part of their business. I'm not that traditional sales rep out there just trying to be creative and how can I slide in this deal? There's no sliding in. It's helping companies become, more successful. And as you help them, as they grow, you're going to grow with them. I want to be that guy they take to the dance, right? So as they keep growing, they don't look elsewhere. I have customers call me all the time. Hey, your competitor's in here. They're trying to dog you out, right? Well, they should try to dog me out because I'm whipping them all day long, right? And it just makes them look so bad in front of the customers. It's like that's all you can do to try to take my customer because you can't, right? Relationships are unbeatable. As long as you're doing the right thing for them, it's not about the money here. It's about creating long-term relationships with my customers. And you're right, Art. Eventually, they go to another company or whatever, but guess what? When they do, they bring me along, right? Because
Absolutely.
I'm doing the right thing.
Absolutely. For me, it's more, I'm not a gimmick type of person. I'll get out there and I'll do my work and I'll research a lot of the places before I go into them. And then I'll have prepared either documents or I'll have something different prepared for them that they may be that may be interested in. When you're out cold calling is when you're knocking on doors, it's just about finding out who that decision maker is. There's there's really nothing else to find out. When you're knocking on the door, who's going to make the decision for IT? Who's going to make the decision for the next copier? Who's going to make the decision for the next wide format? Yeah, I've never been a gimmick type person with a weird handout, although it may work for some people in some situations. But I'm not a fan there. Just a fan, probably like Earl, just going out and doing the work and finding out who that decision maker is, so I can prepare. Once I get the decision maker, then I can make notes on what my next step is going to be to get a hold of that decision maker, whether it's going to be through LinkedIn, whether it's going to through email, a phone call, or maybe another stop in. You might ask that decision, not the gatekeeper, when is the decision maker available? So you just keep that in the back of your head to say, okay, next time I go out there, maybe I need to be there at this time, and maybe I'll get a little lucky.
Wow. So Taylor, you're getting a good feel for the basics and other things. These two guys, absolutely. I kind of gravitated to a different thing, and I credit this to I work for a company called Cintas. We did uniforms. Yeah, they're pretty freaking big, and they have a great system. And it wasn't uniforms, so they were called corporate identity programs. Well, I learned how to prospect with those guys because we were knocking on the doors and dumpster diving our competitors for customer lists. I mean, this is back in the heyday. I used to love it. But what Earl said that was really interesting is I found a vertical and I exploited that vertical as well as I could. I mean, just excellent. Like I just took it and ran with it. And then I kind of gravitated to the more strategic sales. So my typical selling cycle wasn't a 30-day, or it was more of a 60, 90, sometimes 120, but these were the bigger deals. Multiple decision makers, but so I would attack on all fronts, right? Go out there, get in front of a lot. This is back when you could walk, before 9/11, when you could walk in and get some sort of intelligence off of the receptionist. Nowadays, there's all sorts, and face-to-face, I think, is actually more valuable nowadays because hardly anyone does it, right? So knocking on the door, and we would do, like Art says, the gimmicky stuff, but candy to the receptionist, stuff like that. But right now, most recently, it's not attack, but approach on all fronts, right? If I have and it was more target based, so it would be a target account, maybe 100 in a territory, not your Fortune 1000s, but in the 100 million to 500 million. So you have to strategically go after it. And I would try and hit everyone in the organization and diagram the organization in the decision process with all the players. But right now, it's everything. It's LinkedIn, it's the social, it's picking up I think you guys know this. It's picking up the phone. People don't do that anymore, right? And do you guys remember when voicemail was a bad thing? Right? Never leave a voicemail. That was a mantra that everyone's never leave. Well, now, yeah, leave a voicemail. They may not ever pick up, but you got to hit them on all multimedia exposure, not attacks. And there was, I don't know when it happened, and I don't know if you guys can go with this, but there was a light switch that went off in my head. It's like, instead of trying to attack them, trying to attract them. And that changed everything for me. And that's probably because I concentrated in verticals. So once I attacked and took down one of the bigger vertical, like a general contractor in whatever city somewhere, right? You get the good guy. Now everyone at least is going to listen to you because they're working with us. Do you want to work with us? That kind of thing. That really helped out a lot. So I don't know, a little bit different than these two, but all of this is valuable. So I turn that back to you, Taylor. So what are they doing now? What's going on out there?
Yeah. Can I give you guys an example and kind of walk you through? So I used to prospect exactly like all of you guys are saying, exactly like that. And I was very successful. I was 200% to plan every year. I was President's Club every year. I was very successful prospecting the way that you guys are telling me. However, when I learned this, it completely changed my life and I was able to 10x the amount of money that I was making. So if you guys, so let's give an example of like you guys are walking into Best Buy. You know which TV you're going in to buy. You have $2,000. You have the money. You're ready to spend. You just want to go to Best Buy and you want to touch that TV, right? So you walk into Best Buy and the sales rep approaches you. What do they typically say? Anybody?
Can I help you?
How can I help you?
What are you looking for, right? And what do you say to them?
I'm just looking.
TV.
Just
Just
looking.
looking.
So you lie. So you just lied to them, right? Because you know why the heck you're there. You just lied to them though. But it wasn't with malice. It was just like, hey, why do we lie to them?
Our shields are up.
Leave me
I know what
alone
I
while I'm
want.
making
I don't
my
want him to
decision.
tell me.
Yeah, it's a pattern. It's in a pattern that we've been in, that we understand, that we know, right? So you head back to the TVs and the sales rep leaves you alone and you're looking at the TVs, but you can't seem to find one. So the sales rep notices and they come back over and they say, all right, I see that you're looking at the TVs. You know, what can I help you with? And you're like, no, I'm good. I'm just looking, right? When you put up that resistance, then what does the salesperson start doing? When we feel as salespeople that they're not listening, what do we start doing?
Start probing. We don't
Okay.
stop.
More.
Keep going.
Talking more. Yeah. So we start asking questions, we start talking more. So this sales rep starts saying, oh, this is my favorite TV, this is the benefits, this is the features, this is a really great one. And so you're just stealing their information at this point, right? You're continuing to let them talk, your barriers down. You're like, if they're going to give it to me, I'm going to take it, right? And then they're like, okay, you get comfortable with them and you say, this is the TV that I was really looking for. What do you think of it? And they're like, oh no, terrible TV, terrible TV. And so then they start walking you through all the TVs that you should buy. Okay. So after they find you the perfect TV and you're now convinced that that old TV that you wanted is not even the right one, but they have talked you into this perfect TV and you're like, oh yeah, this is it. This is the one. And the sales rep says, all right, you ready to go to the register? What are you going to say? Who's going to buy it? You're going to say, yeah, you're going to buy it?
Take me away.
Yeah, you're going to buy it? What about you, Greg? What do you want to do?
No,
John?
I want the one I came in there for.
Okay.
I want the one I can order from Amazon.
Okay. John, what would you do?
I would want to look around more. I would feel that my initial impression was somehow better than what this professional is telling me.
Okay. All right. So you
I
think
don't
that you're going to go home and you're going to research. I'm going to price shop, right? That's me. I'm going to be like, all right, I'm going to go home and shop, but you're going to do some research. So you're like, oh no, I'll be back in Tuesday. I just, I want to go home. I want to think it over. So Tuesday rolls around. You don't go back into Best Buy. This sales rep is really good. They got your phone number. They call you. What do you do?
I'm good.
Do you answer?
I always answer the phone. It's a thing with me. I always pick up the phone.
Does everybody
So
answer?
I would pick up.
Depends on the number. But 90% of the time I have to answer the phone as well.
Okay, so say that we answer, right? So I would hide, right? I would not answer the phone. I would be like, no, like I already figured out what TV I want. I'm buying it on Amazon. It's a lot cheaper, right? So now what we're doing is now you answer the phone and the sales rep says, hey, you said you were going to come in on Tuesday. Why didn't you show up? And what do you tell them?
Lie.
You lie again. Yes. So then the cycle starts right back over. So it was lie, we steal, we hide, we lie. And that's why so many proposals are getting stuck, because we're like, oh, yeah, they're totally into this. They want this. And so that's why that approach is not working anymore, because we are stuck in patterns as buyers and we know how to put up our defenses. And that's exactly what happens when copier reps walk in and they say, do you guys need a copier? Are you guys having any copier issues? They say, nope, we're good. And that's why it's so hard to get past that door. But if I went in and I said, hey, have you guys struggled at all with, getting toner on time? Or I start asking them questions about their copier and the challenges that they're having, they're going to be more open to talking to me.
Earl,
Yeah.
how do
Yes.
you train your new guys when they come in the door? Based on what Taylor just said. What do you think of that?
So number one, I mean, back to that whole situation, when I go into a store, I'm already an educated buyer. I know exactly what I'm getting, right?
Let me stop you. I want to hear it though. But listen, we are salespeople,
right.
so I guess we're kind of biased, right? Because we see it coming. But go ahead, Earl. Go.
We are the easiest people to sell.
I know.
Go ahead, Earl.
It's about in the field, asking questions. working referrals. And again, just like the vertical markets, it's like, who else have we helped within this industry, you know?
Like that.
And name dropping and saying, listen, we've helped ABC and, you know, 3 other accounts just like yours. And just make it relatable. I mean, you have to have a strong value prop, number one, but it can't be like, oh, everybody's got to have their own personality to it. Like my guys can't be like me, right?
Yeah,
They just
yeah,
can't.
right.
And everybody has a different style. Nobody feels, I mean, I'm kind of the extreme when I'm out there, you know, because I'm very confident with it and I'm very comfortable in my thing, you know, and you know, I tell my guys too, you're basically like an entertainer out there, you know. There's no 2 entertainers like the same thing. However, you still got to have a footprint of what you're trying to accomplish out there. And it's just the basic questions, trying to find out, like Art said, the person that's driving this and what other accounts have we helped. Like today, okay, I went in for a haircut. I got a new guy today. I'm trying to qualify this guy like when I'm in his chair. How long have you been cutting? Because you listen, when I get up from this chair, I don't want it to look the way it is looking right now, you know? And again, when he told me, yeah, I've been doing this for 3 years, man, I wanted to get up and just walk out. So again, that's what customers are doing to us as well. Is like, how do you gain credibility within, you know, 10 seconds with somebody?
Right.
It's all about what you're saying and how you say it, you know? They
So-
have to
so-
be for real.
I want to hit on that. So Earl, when you say you can go out there and swagger with confidence, because A, I'm guessing you've done it before a million times, and B, it's got to be, you got to have to think that if this doesn't work out, I'm okay, right? Is there I mean, do you have that? Like, I'm going to ask these questions, and if these guys are not going to move forward, then I'm good with that, right?
Are you saying on a cold call itself?
On anything, on the sell itself as it's progressing, because
Yeah.
and I guess what I'm trying to get at, Earl, is Taylor, you mentioned it earlier, is the new reps are so afraid to fail, right? And they think a no is the worst thing that can possibly happen. And I know there's some value there, but Earl, do you think your confidence comes from the fact that, you know what, even if these people do say no to me, ultimately, that's okay. There's another one coming. There's that confidence level because I could take the no. Would you say that's
I mean,
there?
here's the thing, like I said, I lose early. If I feel like this customer
Lose
has
early.
no reason to jump ship, you know, they say the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, right?
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
that devil they just don't know. And if I have that gut feeling like, listen, they've been happy and satisfied with their current vendor, they've had the same rep, which is very rare for the past
Right.
10 years or whatever. They have nothing bad against this company. I walk. And whether I can just still try to fight and get the deal, now it's going to come down to a numbers game, right? It's like, what's that compelling reason that they're going to jump ship with me, right? And if it's a numbers game, I walk, you know? There's got to be more into the pot for us because we want profitability, you know? And it's not just a giveaway game here. So it's kind of what is that value add that we bring to any organization? Because everybody's different. Every company is looking for something different, but they all have what we have, right? They all have what we sell. And can we help bridge that gap from the struggles they have today until where they want to go in the future? If we can, great. Let's go to bat and let's win the deal. If we can't, then I'm going to walk because I'm going to go spend my time with somebody that's going to appreciate who we are and what we do and where we can make money. Right.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Switch gears a little, Taylor. So go back to your Best Buy example.
Mhm.
How would you have tutored the salesperson at Best Buy?
What do you mean tootled?
I mean, what would you tell them? How would you tell them to approach someone who's walking in?
Yeah.
Right?
So it's the same example of like if you walk into a retail store and they're like, "Hey, how can I help you?" What if
Right.
you're giving them that yes or no option, right? But if you walk in and you said, "Hey, how's the weather outside today?" as the salesperson, now you've started a conversation with that person. Try to say yes or no to that, you're going to sound like a weirdo. So just approaching them differently than the traditional salespeople. It doesn't have to be with a weird dinosaur costume or with a poster that says something crazy. It can literally just be you approaching them differently than they're used to, because then they're not going to use the pattern of I'm just looking, they're going to actually engage in conversation with you.
That's what I was trying to get at. Is
So-
like when your example was we walk through the door, it is the fact that the table's already been set if they ask those kinds of questions, right?
We already know.
It's like,
Yeah, we already know
yeah.
what they're going to say. So we already know how to
Right.
respond as buyers.
So even many times on a phone call, when I know I'm going to get on the phone with the decision maker. First question can be, especially if the weather's different, I use the weather quite often. How's the weather where you're at? Is it really cold? Did you get a lot of snow where you're at? And it does break the ice, and then opens that client up, gives you a non-yes or no, and you're having a conversation already. And then you move into the content that you wanted to speak about. But you're absolutely correct. It does open up that client rather than sometimes just getting right on that business track.
Wow. Good stuff. We're coming up, it's only 11 minutes left, but I did want to talk about technology and some art. Did we lose John?
Yeah, John's a technology buff, and we kind of ignored him.
All right, well, fine. Okay.
I can talk about some things in technology, then we can wind it up, and we can leave technology maybe for next week. But I was able to be in Safety Harbor, Florida last week for 3 days for the Twain Direct event. And Twain Direct basically is it's an open source API for standalone scanners, right? So the open source means that it's already embedded into the single function scanner. So the small scanners that you may get, which is a brother of what was a Fujitsu is now a Ricoh or a Lexmark. It allows the programmers or developers to customize that scanning workflow, right? And I wish John would have been here or is somewhere back there. But there's a place for that open source software with MFPs, because all of your MFPs are using proprietary software for scanning, whether it's scan to folder, scan to email, whether it's a scan to a thumb drive. And the benefit of this open source Twain Direct is that it can be embedded right in the computer of the copiers.
So when you say open source, that usually means free, right?
Open source, yeah.
Free.
Yeah. And from that time, developers can do their work, whether it's a developer and a manufacturer, like Ricoh or Konica Minolta or Xerox, they can tweak that. And by tweaking that, when you're scanning, a lot of times when you're scanning, you're only able to scan to, if the machine's defaulted to PDF, you're going to scan to PDF, and you're going to send a document to a folder, you're going to send a document to an email. Well, what happens if that document didn't scan correctly? What happens if it's skewed? What happens if the DPI wasn't correct, right? What happens if a page was missing? What happens if there's blank pages in there? Then that user has to go back and actually rescan that document. With some of this next level of this open source software is going to use artificial intelligence, where it's going to be able to tell you when you walk up and you put your documents in, the best way to scan those documents so they're done the correct way and the first time. In addition, it can give you options for different types of scans. So let's say maybe I wanted to send that document to, maybe it's a picture, a legacy picture, and I want to send it to social media, right? LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook. It can take care of that without you downloading it, scan loading it, downloading it, naming it, maybe cropping it, and then uploading it. So there's actually that I learned a heck of a lot about that scanning process that I wasn't heavily involved with, because I've been basically in that MFP market where the manufacturer gives you the scanner and you can scan the email, scan the folder, and that's about it. So that was a little bit about that technology for the Twain Direct.
Okay. I think we'll probably have to revisit that because that's a decent tactical thing to talk about. So yeah. All right, cool. Well, all right. So we're getting to the end.
Yep.
Boy,
There
I
he is.
like the sales conversation. There's
John, you
Hi,
missed it.
John.
I apologize.
That's okay. We sold you out at $15 an hour,
When-
about 40 hours a week. You'll be fine.
Sometimes when that deal comes in, you got to take the call.
Oh, absolutely.
You did say you answer
Um,
all the time, so.
It's we have a big deal cooking, so it's good,
Well,
all good stuff.
Let me make
Cool.
I would just want to say one thing, and I'll tell it to Taylor. So one of the things that I do for developing leads is I have my own. I told you I have my own website,
Mhm.
but I also have my own website titled Jersey Plotters, and all I do is write content about plotters and MFPs
Okay.
consistently. And plus I put $300 a month for Google into it to optimize. And I'm probably getting 4 to 5 calls each and every single month. Probably resulting in, on average, most of them, kind of like, well, may not be interested, but just recently I had a call from somebody and we're going up to sign a KIP, net new customer, for a $25,000 order, just alone by writing content for a blog. A lot of people will say, well, what are you doing different? I don't see that from a lot of reps. And with AI, it really, all it takes is a creative mind, and the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, that's really neat. I love that a lot.
Taylor, any parting words? And then Earl, I want to get your words at the end here too.
Parting
Go ahead, Taylor.
words. If I had any parting words, it would just be stop showing up as normal salespeople. That is going to be the biggest influence that you have on people, because immediately when you start saying things that traditional salespeople say, people are going to put up their wall and they're going to give you the not interested, we're working with somebody else. So just show up differently, however that looks for you. It doesn't have to be super creative, but just make sure that you don't sound like other salespeople as you're doing things, because the greatest part about Sandler, and the reason that I joined and the reason that I teach it, is because you're able to be authentically yourself within it. And you're able to have a system and a process that works really, really well.
Cool. Good. Earl, final thoughts on sales in the current world.
I would say number one mission is always to educate customers. Educate. Forget the selling, quit overcomplicating things, educate customers. Like Art's talking about his blogs, he's educating. He's not selling a product, he's educating people. And they come to him because he's the guy, right? And I want customers to see me the same way. I'm going to help them no matter if they go with us or not. And at least they're going to be an educated buyer, right? So maybe next time we get the business, maybe we don't, but at least, the more that I can help educate, the more deals we close, period.
Perfect. Good. Art.
And John, how about you?
Yes.
Me, I am surrounded by sales folks on this call. I've never sold. I've always been technical. I've always been that consultant that the sales rep brings in.
Everyone
So it's a little bit easier for me to have that credibility. But I always strive in every situation to talk to the customer at a level that they understand and try to make technology easy, and getting them to move into that, take that next step of document management, or take that next step of print security, or whatever it is. Make that easy and make it understandable. And I don't talk down to them, and I try to be very that consultative approach to sales. I think, in my personality, works pretty well.
And working with John and been on John with appointments, he does get to the next step in that process, and he does it very smoothly. He's built that level of trust as the consultant. So there you go, John.
Thank you.
Take us out, Art.
Take us out. It is the 22nd. It's Friday, just about the witching hour. We'll be on Black Friday. Yes?
Yes.
No?
Yes. No,
We
no.
will be.
Yes, let's be on Black Friday.
All right. We'll be on Black Friday next week at 4 p.m. Please be sure to like, follow, share, and we're always looking for guests. And even feel free to shoot us an email or shoot us something on LinkedIn if you have any questions, and we'll bring up those questions and talk about it at our next show. I want to thank
Great
everybody. I
guest
want to thank
today.
John.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you, Earl.
Earl,
Taylor,
as
John, thank
always,
you.
yeah. Taylor, excellent to meet you, and
Good job.
hopefully you can join us again sometime shortly.
Absolutely. Great
Add
to
me on LinkedIn, Taylor and John. All right.
Yes, yeah, you guys too. Yay.
Good weekend.
See you.
Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.